Station today. Thank you very much. Now we move on to our next story. Israeli authorities say activists aboard a Gaza-bound aid boat are currently being detained and awaiting deportation after their vessel was intercepted in international waters. The ship, named the Madeleine, was carrying food and supplies to the war-ravaged Gaza Strip, where the UN has warned of severe food shortages. French President Emmanuel Macron has called for the immediate release of the activists, including 6 French nationals and Swedish campaigner Greta Thunberg. He called for the reopening of humanitarian supply routes. Let's listen to what he said.
Ensuite et surtout, la France appelle à un cessez-le-feu au plus vite et à la levée du blocus humanitaire. Le scandale, l'inacceptable qui se joue à Gaza, c'est cela. Et c'est ce qui, depuis début mars, est une honte. Une honte. Et donc, j'ai encore eu et le président...
The Madeleine was towed to the Israeli port of Ashdod after being stopped overnight. Israel released the first images of Thunberg following the interception, confirming that all passengers are safe and unharmed. The situation highlights ongoing tensions surrounding aid efforts to Gaza amid the long-standing blockade and escalating humanitarian concerns. Now we move on to Europe. Trade talks between the United States and China have entered a second day in London as officials from both sides try to ease growing tensions over tariffs and export curbs. The first round wrapped up Monday at the historic Lancaster House. Discussions will resume Tuesday morning. China's team is led by Vice Premier He Lifeng and includes senior trade officials. The U.S. side is represented by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, and Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. One key issue: China's slow release of rare earth exports, crucial to many industries. The U.S. says Beijing is not fully honoring a deal made in Geneva last month. President Trump, speaking to reporters Monday, said he's only getting good reports from London last week. He held his first phone call since returning to office with President Xi Jinping, calling it very positive. Any breakthrough in London could ease global markets and boost demand for key commodities. Let us listen to what the U.S. President Trump had to say.
We are doing well with China. China's not easy, just like your home country is not easy there. I think we're doing very well. They're over there now. I'm only getting good reports. It's a little early, but they'll be calling in soon. In fact, probably when I get back, I'll have my first call from them. We want to open up China. And if we don't open up China, maybe we won't do anything, but we want to open up China. It'll be a great thing for China, a great thing for the rest of the world.
Chinese President Xi Jinping and South Korean President Lee held a highly anticipated phone call today, focusing on deepening ties across multiple fronts. Lee expressed hope to expand cooperation in security, culture, and the economy, and invited Xi to attend the APEC summit in South Korea later this year. Both leaders agreed to work together on economic growth and strategic stability in the region. She stressed that China-South Korea relations must stay on the right track, calling for mutual respect, stronger trust, and more exchanges at all levels. He also pledged support for the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula and called for both countries to safeguard free trade and strengthen supply chains. She added that a healthy and stable relationship between China and South Korea is essential for regional and global peace. World leaders have issued a warning against the rush to exploit minerals on the ocean floor, cautioning that unregulated deep-sea mining risks turning the seabed into a modern-day Wild West. Speaking at the United Nations Ocean Conference in Nice, France, French President Emmanuel Macron called for an international moratorium on seabed mining. He talked about a high sea treaty to protect seas and oceans. Let's listen to what Macron has to say.
Nous avons travaillé d'arrache-pied ces derniers mois, et c'est pourquoi nous avons, il y a quelques instants, annoncé qu'en effet, au 1er janvier prochain, ce traité pourrait entrer en vigueur et qu'enfin, nous allions avoir un cadre international pour réguler, administrer la haute mer. Et qu'enfin, nous pourrions protéger, lutter contre la pêche illicite dans 65% de nos océans qui jusque-là étaient une zone de non-droit. Nous avons d'ores et déjà 55 ratifications effectuées et déposées, une quinzaine qui sont en cours avec déjà une date sûre, une quinzaine qui sont en cours et qui se feront d'ici la fin de l'année, ce qui fait qu'il n'y a plus de doute, et c'est pourquoi nous l'avons officialisé avec le secrétaire général et plusieurs de mes collègues, il n'y a plus de doute pour dire que d'ici à l'Assemblée générale des Nations unies,
The concerns arise as U.S. President Donald Trump pushes to fast-track mining permits outside international regulations, raising alarms over unilateral actions in international waters. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva called for global coordination to avoid unilateralism in ocean governance. UN Secretary General Guterres urged quick ratification of this high seas treaty to protect marine ecosystems from illegal fishing, pollution, and mining. He warned against reckless exploitation that could damage ocean health and said the deep sea must not become lawless. With rising global opposition, the conference marks a key step to protect the planet's oceans. Now we stay in Europe. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has called for a 400% increase in the alliance's air and missile defenses, warning that Russia's aerial attacks in Ukraine show the urgency. Speaking in London, Rutte also urged NATO members to ramp up defense spending to 5% of GDP, with 3.5% for direct military needs and 1.5% for broader security. Here's what the NATO Secretary General has said.
A 400% increase in air and missile defense. We see in Ukraine how Russia delivers terror from above. So we will strengthen the shield that protects our skies. Our militaries also need thousands more armored vehicles and tanks, millions more artillery shells. And we must double our enabling capabilities, such as logistics, supply, transportation, and medical support. Allies will invest in more warships and aircraft.
Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney has answered that call. He announced that Canada will hit the 2% NATO defense spending target this year, 5 years earlier than planned. Carney says this move won't require new taxes, adding that billions will be invested in military equipment, Arctic security, and domestic defense industry. Here's what the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has said.
Relatedly, we're doing it as a strong NATO partner. We're a firm believer in NATO, and we're standing shoulder to shoulder with our NATO allies. We'll continue to do so. And of course, the United States is a fundamental ally of the country.
The statements come just weeks ahead of the NATO summit in The Hague, where allies are expected to finalize new spending roadmap. Now we move on to Asia. President Donald Trump says a crucial decision could be near as the US and Iran prepare for a new round of nuclear talks. Speaking Monday, Trump confirmed he made what he called a reasonable offer to Tehran, one he hopes will avert military action. The comments came after a phone call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has threatened to strike Iran's nuclear sites. Trump claims he's held Netanyahu back, stressing, quote, "We are trying to make a deal." But Trump warned Iran's demand to enrich uranium remains a major sticking point. He said their current proposal is not acceptable. While Trump mentioned a meeting could happen Thursday, Iran's foreign ministry says indirect talks are now planned for Sunday in Muscat. Iran's top negotiator will visit Norway midweek before heading to the talks. A breakthrough could diffuse growing tensions, but Trump says the alternative is still a very dire one. Let us listen in to what U.S. President Donald Trump has said.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, you just mentioned Iran. Did you discuss Iran?
Very
Did you
well.
discuss
We discussed a lot of
the
things.
Gaza war?
Yeah, we discussed a lot of things, and it went very well, very smooth. We'll see what happens. You know, we're trying to do something with a country we just spoke about, Iran. I think you should negotiate this. You might be better. I think I'm going to send you today. What a good idea. This could have been the idea of the day. We'll have Dara get up and negotiate. They are good negotiators, but they're tough. Sometimes they can be too tough. Well, they're just asking for things that you can't do. They don't want to give up what they have to give up. You know what that is. They seek enrichment. We can't have enrichment. We want just the opposite. And so far, they're not there. I hate to say that because the alternative is a very, very dire one. But they're not there. They have given us their thoughts on the deal, and I said, you know, it's just not acceptable.
Well, that's all we have time for. We will continue